Hi everybody, welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today we're talking all about actually having a checklist for going live. So we'll talk about why you might want to do that. What are some of the things that you might want to consider adding to your checklist, and just some things that we can do to make your live stream shows run that little bit more smoothly. So that's coming up today. We are going out live to all of the places. So if you are watching live, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. In fact, this is something I haven't really done too much lately, but let's do it right now. If you're watching live, put hashtag Team Live or hashtag Team Replay. And I love the finger gestures, Sam. That's amazing. So
I gotta do
Sam,
something.
So how's your week been, Sam?
It's been good. So last week we finally had hit our goal of becoming partners on YouTube with the Cute Avalanche Cat Cam, and this week we have reaped the benefits of about $2. If anyone's curious. hasn't been a windfall, but I blame myself. I honestly put so much effort into just getting the time and the views. We need to now focus on getting actually good content up to justify better time and views / money. Beyond that, it's been a good week. It's been hot in Los Angeles. So if I start fainting or dying here, I apologize. That's what's up. I did want to point out that a new live stream platform, live.space, launched, and I got beta access to that. So yeah, hello to anyone from live.space that may be out there, and we'll keep an eye on you and give you a report in a few weeks what we think of the platform.
Nice. And again, I don't want to sort of stroll casually past the fact that Cute Avalanche is now part of the partner program, and you've got that watch hour time, because that's amazing. That's a goal I know a lot of us have, including Michelle J. Raymond, who is joining us from LinkedIn. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here. Depending on which promos I play during this show, you may even hear a little bit of Michelle later on, so stay tuned for that. And a big hello to Roy, Tech Troublemaker. I was on his show last week, which was a lot of fun. I must admit, I did have to stay up way past my bedtime to appear on that one, so I'm hoping everything I said on that show was basically coherent. But yes, it's always a danger. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. Today we are sort of talking about, and I might just take this image off. Okay, so today we're talking all about actually having a go live checklist. So Sam, why might we even want to have a checklist? What's the benefit of a checklist, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's so that you don't find out 30 minutes into a stream that you've been muted the entire time, and but one person's watching you, and it's your mom. So it's a combination of things. You're doing this checklist to keep you on track, to kind of build these habits so that your stream is always as good as it can be, at the top of its performance. It's always being pushed to as many eyeballs as you can possibly do, for whatever your budget is, if that's free or not. And just to give you a smooth professional streaming experience once you do go live.
Absolutely, because I think people may not realize, if you're an independent person running a live stream, you are wearing an obscene number of hats. Yes. And you might be the on-camera talent, you might be the producer, you might be monitoring the chat, you might be doing things with effects and lower thirds and transitions and all of the things, and it can add up very, very quickly. And I guess, in some ways, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves, exhaust that cognitive load too early in the piece, because you really want to be present for your live show and the content that you're actually talking about. So that's certainly something worth keeping in mind too. So, and Michelle is congratulating you on actually reaching that partner program. It is no easy feat. And
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know how much Michelle knows about Sam, so I might just connect the dots here a little bit. But Cute Avalanche is actually about fostering kittens. They have sort of live streams there going almost 24/7. And in some ways, I love what Sam's doing over there, but I'm personally not in a situation where I can have a 24/7 live stream. No, so I mean, I'm fascinated by what you've done in terms of the watch hours alone. I think that's amazing. Whereas, if I'm being honest, I produce maybe an hour and 10 minutes worth of content on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel each week, and it's just not enough, but it's about as much as I can do right now.
Yeah.
And Roy was saying as well that it was such a fun show. It definitely was. So again, check that out. I've actually got that featured on my YouTube channel if you want to have a look at that later. And hello to CG, who's joining us as well. And we also have somebody on LinkedIn. I don't know who you are because it's not telling me, but hello and thank you for watching, and thank you for watching live. We do appreciate that. So that's awesome. So
can I just want to tack on to what you said about Cute Avalanche, and not to derail this because we do have a topic, but thank you, Michelle. And yeah, it's a very unique use case, the way that we went about getting our watch time hours. It's, we based it like 90% on live streaming because, as John said, we were doing 24/7 lives and not just one. Thanks to Insomnia Doodles, who just dropped in, we were able to do actually at different times up to 3 different live streams simultaneously, in addition to some shorts videos. So our entire strategy was shorts and live and no long form VODs. And that is not something that's going to work for everyone. We also came into it with a Twitch channel with 18,000 followers. Not that they're always there. At any given point, we have like 10 to 25 CCV, right? So it was still an uphill battle. And yeah, it is not the strategy for, your typical content creator to go forth. If you just turn the live stream on and walk away, you're not going to do it.
And I guess the other thing too, like, and I think in some ways Sam and I are we're kindred spirits, but we do have different experiences and different relationships. And I think like the big thing that I'm always amazed and impressed by in terms of Cute Avalanche specifically is that you do have this amazing community that want to support everything you do. And Insomnia Doodles is in the chat. She actually started live streaming her kitten while you guys were on holidays. So, I mean, it's just amazing that you can actually, not only that you have sort of this 24/7 live presence on that channel, but also, you had people waiting in the wings to really support you and go above and beyond. So that's just amazing.
Yeah. Insomnia has always been like one of our number one supporters and creative helpers. Like, she does all of our emotes and a lot of our artwork as well, and streamed Kiki, as she said in chat.
Yep. And Kiki's a really cute kitten, so you can check that out as well too after the show. But today, I guess we are sort of talking about having a live streaming checklist, and I guess, depending on who you are and what you're doing and what your goals are, this may look very different for different people. So we're probably going to address a lot of things over the next little while. And I guess the first thing I want to say is, don't feel like you need to implement all of them, and certainly don't feel like you need to implement all of them today, because it can be very easy to get overwhelmed. I think you need to think about where you're putting your time and energy first, and really just work to your goals, because, like I said, there's a really good chance there's maybe 1 or 2 people running the entire show, and there's only so much you can physically do. There's only so much you can technologically do. But that said, if you do take a little bit of time up front to think about what your goals are and what you would like to achieve, then you can sort of customize those actions to really get the best experience out of that for you and your audience. So I guess let's start off by talking about actually planning a live stream. So again, depending on who you are and what you're doing, this could look very different. And I must admit, I'm a little guilty of being a little bit snarky about people that just go live and talk about whatever pops into their head, because that's just something I'm personally not massively interested in unless I have some sort of existing relationship with you. I really want to know what your content's about and make a conscious decision about whether I spend an hour with you or, go do something else. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I was laughing. But yeah, I think, when you go into this, you're thinking about what you can do to sort of really streamline your process, but also take choices off of your plate. Because one of the things that really distracts us as creators is having to come into it every week with like, do I want to do this or do I want to do this? Just if you already make those choices ahead of time and you are like, this is what I do for this stream, it's going to make everything go faster in the long run and keep you on track, much like this conversation is just getting derailed. So we need to look at our list. But, but yeah, when we talk about like planning the actual broadcast itself, you create a run of show, which is really just a fancier list that's like a show document, or depending on what you want, to give you your talking points and, you know, your format and stuff like that. You know, and that can look very different from like this show to when I did the Just Kidding Around podcast live stream. You may, you know, if you have a guest or if you're solo, you know, you're still going to want to just have either those bullet points to reference, or you may be the kind of person who wants entire chunks of dialogue that you can check in on.
Absolutely. So I guess in terms of, you know, some of the questions, before we get more granular, like I love this as a framework: who, what, where, when, and how. So these are really broad questions, but if you think about who will actually be involved in your live stream, and is it just you and your audience? Do you have a guest on? Do you have a co-host on? How are they going to feature into the show itself? What? I'll put Michelle's comment on the screen in a second, but what are you actually going to be talking about? Because that's really, really important. People need to know ahead of time whether that's something that will be of interest to them, or whether they'll be better off doing something else. Where? So what platforms and what destinations you actually live streaming to? That's really, really important, because different platforms have different sensibilities. And again, I feel like I'm going to be referencing Michelle for the entire hour, but we know that she's got a LinkedIn background, and people on LinkedIn might want different things to people on YouTube or on Twitch or on Kick, for example. I guess when is a huge one. So the time and dates. And again, it blows my mind a little bit. And I don't know, maybe it's just me and the interactions I have with other people, but I find I need to explain to a lot of people that time zones exist.
Right.
Because I hear so much advice that's like, go live in the morning. And I'm like,
whose morning?
Morning is different for everybody. Like, we're not even on the same days. They'll be like, go live on Monday mornings. And it's like, well, my Monday morning is often somebody's Sunday night. So I guess that's a thing. But even more than that, especially if you are working with a guest or interviewing somebody, you've really got to get that scheduling in well. And it's a good idea to use some scheduling tools to do that, so they can handle the math of that time zone translation. And finally, and we'll talk about this in more depth in a moment, but how are you going to have that conversation? How are you going to broadcast? What is the technology involved? What is the software involved? What does your setup look like? What does your guest setup look like? Because if they're not going live all the time, they may need some coaching to you know, be able to show up well for you in that sense.
And honestly, even if they are used to going live, they're not used to going live with you and whatever your setup is. Where, you know, John and I are currently using Restream. I've done plenty of different guest-ins where it was like a Discord, a Zoom, Video.Ninja, and nobody's used all of the things consistently enough to be like, I know exactly how to use this thing. So like, if you are going to use something that has like an invite link, what we do on our side for the Cute Avalanche live stream, I have like an entire master doc of like, click this link. Here's what all the screens look like. Hit this button, this button, this button, enter your name, come in, you know, and do a test with that person. When we were doing the Own Every Word NFT game show, we would do it like an hour before the show, but honestly, that's too close in my book. I would do it the day before if you can. But that involves more scheduling, and a great way to schedule your guests in general and for tests is something like Calendly. And that also gives them the local time.
And I guess like a lot of the scheduling tools, like, you know, Outlook, even just Google Calendar, like it will do the math for you. But it's, I guess in some ways, And I've been really bad. Sometimes people will reach out to me and say, "Hey, do you want to do this live on this date at this time in this time zone?" And I can sometimes some of the things that actually come up in Google aren't particularly accurate, and I'll be thinking, "Oh, I've got to be there at 8 a.m." and it turns out I was supposed to be there at 9:30. So I mean, it's a good thing to leave those things, not to chance. So Tech Troublemaker Roy is saying checklists are really great to have. I'm not consistent using them, but they make a big difference in staying on track and doing pre-show and post-show prep.
Yeah,
which is absolutely true. Michelle is laughing that and is not at all surprised that I'm not a big fan of conscious a stream of conscious conversations. And Insomnia Doodles is actually saying that she loves Calendly, and to be honest, I've only used the free plan of Calendly, but I do like it. I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the free plan's really all you need if you're doing something like we're doing. We used it professionally with Super League Gaming. I know they paid for it, but I honestly can't tell you what the difference was off the top of my head. But yeah, that is a great free tool. I get it probably had like a certain amount of interactions per month that you could do, something like that. Yeah, I would support Calendly.
Also, Janine is saying, speaking of deciding whether or not to spend an hour with someone, I have visited a true crime YouTube channel in which the streamer seems to get stuck on her own pet peeves and just won't let it go and move on. I guess that's always a danger, is that you can get quite easily derailed by random shiny things. So I think it's a good idea, and I think sometimes people don't appreciate the difference between live and pre-recorded video is that, the audience are participating in real time, and they might want to take it in a different direction, and you've got to sort of allow for that to happen. And I think sometimes it's very easy these days to take a pre-recorded video and pretend it's live, but I don't think that's the interaction most live viewers are looking for. And I think sometimes there's a danger that if you are ignoring them for too long, they will leave, or they will leave very disgruntled comments. So I guess that's another thing that you might want to consider. Okay, so I guess in terms of actually continuing this theme of planning your stream, you've got to make sure you schedule that event. I guess if it's a regular occurring show, it's a really good idea if you have it at roughly the same time each week or each day, or whatever the cadence of that looks like, because that actually will set some expectations within your audience, and you'll essentially become part of their weekly routine potentially. But I guess, Sam, this is the bane of many of our existence, but I think we have to talk about it. Let's talk about video thumbnails, titles, and descriptions.
I mean, yeah, you should be putting a lot of planning time and research time into your titles and thumbnails. Like, this has been a thing that I'm sure if you've watched any video guru out there, they're like, that's the thing. This is 100% the thing. And yeah, it's the thing. Do the thing that you need to do. Too many people make the video or plan the live stream, and then like an hour before the stream, they're like, oh, I should probably do a video thumbnail. What do I want to call this? But really, those are things you need to like put a lot of time and effort into, and research. Like, you can go to, what is it, Answer the Public? Is that the website, or is it Ask the Public? Gosh, I always forget. Which is a great, let me look it up. It's a great website, which if you haven't seen that, you can put in a topic and it will it is answerthepublic.com. And it will kind of spit back at you a bunch of questions that people have typed in to ask about that particular topic. So you can find something and be like, this is great. We need to talk about the pre-live stream checklist. That's something, and then you can build your titles around that. Once you have that, go in and like really nail that thumbnail. Hey, and
it's I guess to your point, Sam, like that is the thing that everybody talks about: the thumbnail, yes, the video, the title, and the description. And I guess like the thing that everyone says is make the best thumbnail. They won't tell you what that looks like, and I guess their cop out in some ways is simply that different people are looking for different things, and you probably need to test those.
There's 1,000 gurus out there telling you what you can do, but what you have to do is test for your audience. So there you go.
And like one of the things we do know is that YouTube are intending on rolling out some ABC type testing for video thumbnails next year. And when Sam sort of mentioned this to me, I'm like, do you know how hard it is for me to create a single thumbnail, let alone 3 or 6 for each stream? Depending on how you're watching this stream today, I've kind of given up trying to put both of us onto the same video thumbnail. So there are sort of Sam versions and John versions of today's show. But yeah, it's a weird thing, and I guess, you know, in terms of the title and description, what are those things that people are actually searching for? Because and there's a bit of a trade-off with that as well, because, you know, do you want to be the 1 millionth video that uses one particular title or collection of keywords?
Yeah.
You know there's demand potentially out there for that, but you're also competing with a lot of different people. So it is there are all kinds of trade-offs there, and I think for me, as someone who's relatively new to doing this again after taking a break for a number of years, there are so many variables, particularly on YouTube, that it's really hard to pinpoint what could be improved and you know, what is working and what isn't. But that's a bit of a...
Yeah. And, you know, I think depending on the platform that you're using, not all platforms use thumbnails, and not all platforms really surface those titles anywhere useful. Like, they're not all Google indexed so high. So, you know, maybe pay attention to what platforms you're using and really what the sort of weight of the value of those things is. Because, yeah, if you're out somewhere, I don't want to name names, Trovo, and, you know, it's not really being indexed by Google, then, you know, do good enough. Like, you know, get it done, but you don't have to stress too much. But yeah, if it's on YouTube, put the extra effort in.
And I guess one thing we haven't spoken about is, you know, what might this checklist look like? What are the tools that you might use? And I guess it could be anything from a printed bit of paper that you just mark off with a pen or a whiteboard or something, or it could be a technical tool. It could be, you know, something like, you know, and Roy's sort of recommending Notion, actually, and Google Calendar for organization, which are both great tools. Google is adding Calendly functionality first to Workspace and then to everyone's calendar. So that's a great thing to know as well. I guess I'm... You know, and I feel like we might have mentioned this on a previous show, but Sam and I are both pretty nerdy. We're not adverse to a spreadsheet. So I like the thing I love about spreadsheets is I often just set up some basic functions in there, so I can press a 1 and it'll change it to a tick or a cross or something, just to let me know that I've actually covered that item off. But yeah, it is certainly something to keep in mind. And a big hello to Claire, who is lurking, as she is inclined to do. Thank you for joining us. There are all kinds of great emotes and things in that message that don't translate into Restream, so a lot of you might have read that comment and wondered what on earth was going on, but that's all that was. So again, yeah, okay, cool. So let's we'll continue talking about some of the things that you might like to include on your checklist in just a moment, but let's have a look at this one.
Looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up, and I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that is my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. You can learn more about that at johnlacey.com. And it does actually feature, or that particular episode featured an interview with Michelle J. Raymond, who is a LinkedIn expert. But I just loved hearing about how she sort of overcame her fear of being on camera, because I think that's a really, really important thing. And I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. So This is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today we're talking all about creating your own live streaming checklist. So just a way of improving the workflow of your live events, making sure that you don't miss any important things as you go along. So I guess before we do actually move on to the next part of our process, I think in terms of actually scheduling the events, and we've spoken about this before, and if you're using any of the tools that are out there like Restream or StreamYard, you probably have a good sense of how to technically do this. But again, that's where you're sort of generally implementing that title and description and thumbnail. But I guess the other thing I want to encourage people to do is once you've decided to go live and you've set those things up, make sure you also head over to those individual destinations, because you'll find that a lot of those places actually do give you additional options.
Yes.
So we know on YouTube, for example, if you go into the settings, and I think it's the stream customization options, you can choose whether to have the chat replay show up on the screen or not. On LinkedIn, you can actually sort of specify a guest as a speaker, and if they accept that invitation, that message will be sent out to their LinkedIn following when that live event happens as well, which is a really good way of sort of spreading some additional awareness. I know in Restream, when we schedule these events, if I go into edit the LinkedIn destination options, there's also the live auto English captions, which I think is usually a good thing to actually switch on there as well. So I guess, it's worth keeping those in mind. And I guess, Sam, we did, in fact, I know you're dying to say something, so I'll let you do that before I ask.
I was going to add on with YouTube, because it's on my checklist. I have a pop-out checklist that is a post-it note that's like right in my face when I turn the computer on. In addition to whether or not you have the live chat replay on, you can also just straight out toggle the chat itself on or off. You can add a trailer video, and you can add a redirect. So when the stream is over, it pushes to either another one of your streams or a stream that you have access to. There are like some public channels, and there are some that you're invite only to, where you can be like, hey, I'll go over to this thing after my thing. So it's a collaboration that you can make with people and, share traffic, kind of like a Twitch raid. And if you got partnered, there's a whole other world of extra additional things you can do, including setting up your merch shelf underneath your live stream that will like highlight a certain amount of merchandise from one of your partnered stores and shopping experiences. So like there's a lot built into that YouTube live stream backend. Go through it and be like, these are the important things.
The only thing that I would add, and this is a bit of a disparity between Sam and myself, is that you need at least 1,000 subscribers to have access to a lot of those features. So
yes.
If you're Sam, that's great. If you're me,
then you only have to worry about the first 3, 4, something like that. Does your account get the redirect and the trailer ability?
No,
that's a higher up one. Okay.
It's all that stuff is you got to have at least 1,000 subscribers. Okay. And I did actually reach out to the YouTube support people on Twitter who confirmed that for me. So that was good to know, at least, so I could stop looking for it.
Okay.
But anyway, I guess, like, Sam, assuming that you were maybe starting from scratch today, and you didn't already have an existing audience on a particular platform, how would you evaluate the platforms that might be best for helping you reach your goals?
I mean, honestly, if I was starting completely from scratch, didn't know where I was going to go to, I might do something like try and multicast to as many as possible, and then review the data afterwards to be like, what had the most views, what got the most chat, and then, see if I wanted to double down, which is basically what happened when Cute Avalanche, which was very big on Mixer, and Mixer faded away. We were like, what do we do now? Where do we look to? We had been multicasting at the time because that was not against Mixer's terms of service or anything. And so we just kind of did that exact thing. We looked at those numbers and we actually thought we were going to double down on DLive. And very quickly after Mixer faded away, that sort of spike of people at DLive also faded. and we started to see the rise on Twitch, which is when we decided that that was not what we were doing. We were going to go with Twitch, and then we never looked back. So yeah, put it out there in as many places as you can if you have the energy and the time to really analyze all that. Or if you're doing a very specific thing and there is a platform that does champion that thing, not that Twitch is always the answer, but you're gaming, it's Twitch, right? Although maybe not today anymore, but a couple of years ago, it would have been like, I'm gaming, it's going to be Twitch. I'm doing a podcast, it's probably going to be, YouTube, but maybe not. So yeah, I think those are the things you would consider when you're trying to figure out what platform or platforms to sort of focus on if you're starting from scratch.
Absolutely. And hello to Walter Strong III, who's actually joining us via his NBA Sports Talk YouTube channel. That's a new sports show that he's producing. I must admit, I don't know anything about sports, Walter, but thank you for joining us nonetheless. Okay, so today
the wrong thing. Sorry.
Yep.
I hit a thing. I was trying to edit a thing.
Don't be editing anything. Okay. Anyway, today, so this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today we're talking all about having a live streaming checklist. So we've spoken about actually planning the events, but let's talk about promoting the events. So, it's one thing to, and part of the reason I think I do recommend you actually scheduling the event ahead of time is so that you do have a bit of runway for people to know that it's happening, and on different platforms they can sort of opt in to say that they're going, and they'll get notified when it goes live. So I mean, that's certainly something to keep in mind. But again, what is the build up going to look like? How are you going to get people interested in the things that you're going to talk about? So I guess for me, that's often about teasing content ahead of time, letting people know what's coming up, what they might actually get out of it. I know one thing that I've come to really enjoy doing is I have a LinkedIn newsletter, and I talk about, the podcast, I talk about this show, I talk about other sort of live streaming related subjects depending on what sort of popped into my mind that week. So I mean, that's another a good way of doing it. But I guess social media, and this is a bit of a detour, but I think we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. There are so many platforms out there right now, and there are no particularly obvious leaders there. And I kind of took a bit of a break from social media this week because it was all just too much, and I felt I was getting too little out of it and putting too much energy into it. I guess one of the things that I like to do is, to the extent that I'm able to, is actually pre-schedule messages to let people know that this show is going live. Because the last thing I want to do is mess around with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter just before because I want to focus on getting the show right. I want to be in my subject matter. And to the extent that you're able to, and you're not able to do these on all of the platforms, but to the ones that you can, I kind of recommend you do that. Yeah. And you could use a third-party tool, although most of them are pretty good at actually having stuff built into them these days. So I just like to have something go out live automatically to do that. But I feel like I'm sort of I'm avoiding the topic a little bit, but weird stuff is happening on Twitter. Threads has been released by Meta. I finally got a Blue Sky invite, and it looks like no one's going to join me over there.
Well, like Blue Sky the minute it launched, like Threads launched a week later, and I mean, not really a week later, but when a lot of us got our invites, it was like, this is great. Oh wait, shinier thing over here. This is even better because this has all of my Instagram followers. So yeah, I mean, that's a whole topic we could probably talk about forever. And if anyone wants to take wages on how long until Twitter actually dies, I'll take that bet. I'll see you on Threads. But no, I agree 100%. Anything that has scheduling built into it still has my heart. Hilariously, because of all these things, I've, pulled back on like Hive and Post.news or whatever the hell that was, and Mastodon, which was a huge mess. And then like a few days ago, I saw that Threads is going to be able to syndicate to the Fediverse, and WordPress just sent an email to me that was like, you can now post to Mastodon. I was like, well, God, I was not going to pay attention to that anymore. I'm done with it. But I guess if it's there, I'll push to it. I'm just probably not going to reply to comments.
And honestly, this is the whole thing. And like I sort of mentioned my Learn Live Streaming newsletter on LinkedIn a moment ago, and I kind of went, I don't think social media is the answer. Although, I think for me personally, I want to post stuff and I want to communicate with people that I'm friends with, but I think I need to just spend a lot less time there. And Walter's got a comment here, which I think it probably speaks to a lot of us. What I've been doing in promoting my new live shows for the sports channel is just focusing on one or two social media to prevent myself from getting frustrated.
Yeah, if you don't have an easy way to push to a bunch of them at once, I don't recommend going through 7 different social media platforms, in your daily routine to be like, I'm posting this here, and now it's over here, and now it's over here, and you're just going to get burnt out so quick. So yes, find 2 or 3 that you think represent where you want to, the communities you want to attract, and have a good energy to them. And yeah, that's totally how you should play it. I back that 100%.
And it's funny because I used to make a lot of short vertical clips. Like I used to have 3, 4, 5 of them each week. And I just, like, life got busy. There were some technical problems with my computer. And I stopped doing that. And there's a social media scheduling and posting and creation tool that I purchased on AppSumo, I want to say somewhere between 5 and 8 years ago, just a really obscene time ago that I barely look at, but it suddenly had the ability to schedule posts onto TikTok.
Oh, interesting.
And I'd given up on TikTok, and suddenly I'm like, wow, I could just schedule these. Like I could just keep posting them automatically. And it's weird how developments in technology can sort of push those things back in front of your minds. And I guess for me, the thing that I've been saying for years at this point is that opportunities are everywhere, but opportunity cost is real. And if I spend 1 hour doing TikTok, that's 1 hour I can't spend doing something else. And you kind of, you just have to try things and see how they pan out for you. But I guess getting back to our topic today, because I feel like we went on a bit of a side rant there. And incidentally, Insomnia Doodles gives Twitter 10 months. So, she's happy to take that bet. So you better organize that too. And I must admit, I do. I love WordPress. I think it's the greatest tool on the internet.
I also love WordPress. My personal site and the Cute Avalanche site are all WordPress sites. I think there's a difference because Janine had asked a question about WordPress, but there's a difference between WordPress.com sites and other sites because there is a self-hosted version of WordPress. So I think maybe she's thinking of just that sort of general, I made a free website kind of thing. But while we're addressing chat, this is our first from live.space. Do it, Pruitt says, greetings, lovely to have you here. Thank you for checking in over on live.space. You are 100% of our interaction there now. You get a prize.
And it's funny that platform is so early in beta that I can't even see that I'm live there.
Have
but
to
Sam
have a beta
assures me
invite
that I'm over there. But anyway, like I said, let's get back to our topic today. So I guess in terms of promoting, are there particular assets that you need to create? Are there assets that you've already created and reuse and can reuse? And I think, to be honest, once I've spent several hours working on a video thumbnail, I kind of want to recycle that as much as is humanly possible. And depending on the tools that you're using to create your graphics, it's often not a big deal to go from a rectangular format to a square format or different dimensions and that kind of thing. But certainly, I guess the other thing that we haven't kind of mentioned is that there are opportunities to actually get input from the audience before the show. So whether you're asking for questions, we've done Q&A episodes about OBS Studio, for example, in the past. We've also, thrown open survey questions. So do you own an Elgato Stream Deck? That was one of the more popular questions from memory. So there are ways of sort of talking about the thing that you're going to talk about and then casually mention, oh, and by the way, we have a show on this coming up on Friday or Saturday, depending on your time zone. But yes, there are all kinds of things that you can do there. So keep it in mind. But I think it's really good to, think about what you can actually deal with, and not be too overwhelmed by all the options that are out there. And there are so many of them. It's honestly ridiculous. And I guess that was the other thing that the other realization I had during the week. It's like at some point, the feature set all converges and they all become the same, and they're just utilities at that point in time. So anyway, this is the video and live streaming show. We'll be back in just a second.
Constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that, of course, is just kitten around. And I feel like we can only go for so long before we mention kittens again, or the audience gets a little bit restless. So you can certainly find out more about that and subscribe in all the places. But head over to Cute Avalanche to check that out. Yeah. Okay. Walter has a great question.
Yeah, this is.
So when posting on social media to promote your show, what forms of media do you primarily use? Video, audio, or text with static images? The good... I mean, in some ways, it's a good idea to think about the platform you're posting to and what people like on that platform. But also, I think there's a lot to be gained by doing a bit of everything.
Sure.
So, it really depends on what you're interested in exploring. But certainly, I guess for me personally, I generally have 3 main deliverables throughout the week. And that's basically my newsletter, this show, and my audio podcast. And especially as someone who spends a lot of time on LinkedIn, and the thing we know about LinkedIn is it doesn't really like you to post more than once every 18 hours. For me, I just round that up to once a day. So I've sort of got those 3 pieces of content ready to go. And then the other 4 days, I can just sort of mention, I can throw back to those things or talk about something else, depending on what I'm interested in. So there are all kinds of opportunities in different places. And like one thing that I've been doing a lot lately is that... And had you asked me, how I felt about Facebook generally, I would have had a very low opinion of it. But it's interesting. As someone who has a Facebook page, it does offer me a few interesting things. And one of them is, I think they're called stories. But essentially they're image posts. You can add text, but you can also have a call to action button. And I've been using those a lot. And often I will just have the video thumbnail or the podcast artwork. I will have some text above it, like, new episode, or, we're going live in 30 minutes, whatever it happens to be. And just make sure, and again, this is something that seems to relate to pages on Facebook, not personal profiles. But on pages, I can choose a number of different bits of text, like learn more or see more or shop or whatever. And then I can actually include a URL in that context that people will be able to click on as a button. So that's something I've been playing around with a bit. On LinkedIn, it's often great to actually have one of those quizzes or survey type things, because that's a really easy click of a button, and that way they've interacted with you. I do like writing. I feel like I'm a writer at heart, so I do that for both the newsletter and just even the occasional post. So It really just depends on. I mean, there are so many options, and I feel like I'm not addressing Walter's question directly because it is so variable.
I think it is. It's a very variable, and it depends very much on the platform that you're doing. Where, I put a lot of effort into my YouTube community page, and I can tell you right away that static images do the best, and then polls do second best, and just text, posts don't do much. They do a little, but not much. And same with actually video sharing, which it's not embedding the full video. It's just kind of a chiclet to the video. I don't think it does quite as well. I don't post a lot of like just audio except for the long form podcasts. I don't really mess with that. That's just personal preference. But yeah, if we want to narrow it down to what do you think X, Y, and Z for this platform, I think we would have different advice. But it's gonna be that math of like this platform, plus this equals what's best.
I think it does depend on your goals a little bit, because I think part of the reason this is why I am the way I am is because I'm an introvert and I like to go really deep on a subject, and I don't think most people on social media want that. Like, I think, honestly, the easier it is to interact with a piece of content, the more interaction it's likely to get. And I've complained about these screenshots of tweets with the word agree ?
Right.
Before, but I kind of feel like for a lot of people, and again, it comes back to your goals, but for a lot of the time, a lot of people were seeing the short clips I did, and they weren't coming to the live, and that's fair enough, because if you've got a minute, you may not have an hour to spend with me, and that's fine.
That is exactly the thing with short video, is that it is easily accessible, easily digestible, and easily moved on from, and that's all you can ask from it. And when we post shorts, specifically to our YouTube for Cute Avalanche, all I'm looking for is that view and maybe getting a subscriber out of it, which seems to do, like, those are the two metrics that really come through most of all. But like, if we can get a 5% click through to our profile, that's amazing in my eyes. And I can't expect more than that. Like, you sit there and you do this yourself, and you're not going to everyone's profile. You're just scrolling through the stupid feed. And
it's funny because I think on LinkedIn, I have even lower expectations of those videos, but I kind of, even if you don't click play, I want people to see me next to this microphone and go, this is a person who talks about subjects.
Yep.
And I think in some ways there's, whatever it is that you're wanting to get out of a platform, the sheer repetition of you doing the thing and showing up and being seen as the person doing the thing, I think that's really, really important. So I mean, I hope that answers the question. I mean, there are lots of different ways that we could sort of tackle that, but I guess, like, it really, in some ways it equally depends on just how much bandwidth I have, how much energy I've got, what I'm interested in on a given week. So, I mean, there are lots of opportunities, and I guess, a lot of people use Canva. They have existing templates, and I think, if you can recycle some of the things you've already created, that'll give you a bit of a head start there as well.
Yeah, and also with Canva, you mentioned this before, the ability to like change your aspect ratio is very easy in Canva if you have the pro plan, to go from a 1:1 to a 16:9 to a story or whatever, 9:16. And similarly, they also have the ability to, with the pro plan, bulk upload. So you can spend a whole day just writing, different quotes, different calls to action, and then upload that to a template. And suddenly you have 50 different pieces of work to throw out there and schedule for the next month. So, I don't get anything if you sign up for Canva and haven't already, but enjoy it.
Honestly, whatever tools work for you, and we've spoken about this before. I'm not even going to go there again, but it's funny, we weren't convinced we could do an entire hour on this show.
We only made it halfway through
our show run document, so we better get back on track.
Maybe we just break it into a two-parter. Although the last two parts, I think we can do in 2 minutes. So
yeah. So I mean, obviously we've planned and promoted our events. We've actually got to do the events. So what are the things that we need to think about when we're actually producing the event, when we're going live? Sam, what are the things that you think we should keep in mind?
Make sure your mute is off. Okay, so yeah, the whole thing with producing is, I mentioned testing before. You definitely want to do a test, especially if you haven't run this particular stream before, especially if you have a guest on, especially if you want other people to see it. Running a test stream is a great idea if you have something like YouTube or you're going to Twitch. It's really easy to run your test. You do like an unlisted video on the YouTube. Twitch has an actual testing URL that you just switch out and you can do the whole thing like that. Do that. It's we never do, but do that. Take it with a grain of salt that I never do it. But it's a great idea. You want to, go over, if you do have a guest, with them, their tech specs and testing their thing, have them come on an hour before the show, 15 minutes before the show, multiple times, just to make sure their mic's showing up and their cameras showing up and their internet connection is good and all of those things. Check your own internet connection. Do a speed test. I have on my Stream Deck, I don't know if you can see it, this top middle button here is a CPU. No, that's the internet speed readout. And next to it is my CPU readout. So I can just monitor constantly to make sure nothing bad is happening. Things like that are great. And then when you've done all your testing, you've already planned your show, get into it, right?
Absolutely. And I guess, the testing is a great way of going, but especially if you've introduced any variable. So
yes,
if you're doing anything different than normal, if you've got a new person on, make sure you go through that. Obviously, try to stick to your show run document a little bit. Make sure you acknowledge the people in the chat. Again, This is the difference between live and produced video, is that those people in the chat are here and we need to acknowledge them and we need to talk to them and we need to be open to their feedback, because they might want to take it in different places and different directions. And that's the beauty of live. So, we want to make sure we're doing that. So Sam, in terms of actually of things that we might want to do after the show is sort of been and gone, and I know there's one part of this that people are particularly excited about from previous shows, but what are some of those things that you think we might need to think about once the show is over?
Yep, walk away, go eat some food and say, see you later, show. No, you want to do everything you can to promote what you have just done, reuse, repurpose all of the content you've just created. You have a whole world of social media and other content that you can create from whatever you've done. Do it. And then you can then use that in addition to promote what you've done, to promote what you're about to do. And it just becomes a seamless circle of like endless promotion. But yeah, I think, go on, John, go ahead. I've said enough.
So, I mean, depending on what your goals are, but I think in terms of things like transcribing the audio, I think that's a great accessibility thing. You can go in and add sort of YouTube chapters. So if you want people to be able to jump to different segments of the show, that's often quite useful.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, I want to interrupt. If you're not familiar with YouTube chapters, it'll literally at the bottom of your stream, you'll see little thumbnails with the different chapter headings, and like even the play bar will be broken up, so you can just kind of like hover over it and be like, okay, here's where they talk about producing shows, here's where they talk about post-show and stuff like that. And it's great. You just need the timestamp, which is just a 4-digit timestamp, not a traditional editor one, or it gets a little funky. You can use an AI tool like Decipher to get those chapters. And again, they're not paying me anything to say that, but I like that tool. But they do, it's once a month, free for 40 minutes. But if you pay for it, you can get more minutes. I don't know their packages, but yes, do that. I think that's great. And you can just skim through it yourself, of course. I used to ask my community to be like, with the kitten cam, like, what's a good moment? Find a good moment and tell me the timestamp, put in the comments, because you can just leave it in a comment too, or do it in the video description. Okay, Beck, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I guess another thing that I certainly find on YouTube specifically is that your live video needs to be processed before you can add things like end cards and titles. And I don't know that me watching the live stream again helps speed up that process, but I kind of suspect it might. So that's one thing that I always do, like almost the minute we finish going live, is I'll have the video running in the background. So, I mean, that's certainly something you want to do. I guess go back and check those comments. Are there threads that you need to pick up? Do you need to reply to people?
Yeah.
Was there something that maybe you tabled for a future show to cover that you need to do some research on, that kind of thing? But certainly in terms of the repurposing, and we've done entire shows on repurposing, I think, or at least parts of shows. I'm not sure. We've done so many of these shows that are all sort of blurring into one in my mind right now. And I should say too, like Sam was kind of joking about once you finish the show, go off and have something to eat and forget about it for the rest of time. But we make this mistake every week of trying to have a production meeting the minute we finish the show, and we're just so brain dead from having done the show that it's not a good idea. But so I think it is honestly a good idea to go and have a break and then come back to some of these things. But certainly there are different things that you might want to try out. But you know, I guess those are all good things to keep in mind. And again, depending on what your goals are and your intentions are, you know, how you want to customize that checklist, that's kind of up to you. And again, I would love to hear from people if they are using a checklist or if they're thinking about using a checklist. Whether you're watching this now or in the future, just let us know wherever you happen to be watching it. We'd love to hear from you. And also, if there are topics that you'd like us to cover in a future show, we'd love to hear that as well. But Sam, as we start to wrap up, where can people find out more about you and watch your content and all that good stuff?
Sure. Yeah, you can find all of my links at my website, samproof.tv, and cuteavalanche.com. For really, I'm mostly doing that kind of stuff right now, is focusing on the cat stuff. I have kind of pulled back on my own live streams with the exception of this one. So yeah, head over to cuteavalanche.com and look for those links as well.
Nice. And if you want to find out what I'm up to, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I've got all the links and a whole bunch of articles and weird and wonderful things happening there. I would tell you to follow me on social, but I don't know how much I'm going to interact to right now. But certainly we'll pick up some of those threads in the future. Thank you, everyone who's joined us. We've had some great participation in the chat today. It's been really, really awesome. We should be back roughly the same time next week. Yeah. But as I said, if you've got any particular things that you'd like us to talk about in the future, just let us know. And yeah, have a great week and a great weekend. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, guys.